Hello everyone, and welcome to my ongoing series on making parts in Solidworks, and this is what we're going to be doing today. What I want to show in this video is using a combination of extrudes and revolves. This is another just useless sample part, but it's kind of typical of something you might see in like a washer nozzle or something like that. Spray water in this end, water shoots out the sides. Cool, right? Let's go ahead and start this up. Notice this one is in millimeters, grams, seconds. So when I click my new part, it comes up here and I'm hitting OK. My Solidworks defaults to inches, pounds, seconds. So I'm going to change that right down here by clicking in the bottom right. IPS, I'm going to change that to mmgs, millimeters, grams, seconds. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is go to the top left and click Sketch. It's going to ask me where I want to start this, and I'm going to just click front plane because it's right there. I'm still using the simplified interface, which you can see down here in the bottom right. In the next video, I'm going to change that up and go back to the standard interface. But for now, simplified does everything we need to do. So I'm going to choose circle. I'm going to click right here and drag us out. Notice with a circle it's showing the radius. So in this case I want a 25 millimeter diameter, so it's going to be roughly 12.5 millimeters. Come up here to Smart Dimension. By the way, if you mouse over anything, it will tell you a little bit about what that command does. So you can read a bit about it. I'm going to click Smart Dimension right there, click my circle, and I'm going to type in 25. That gives me a 25 millimeter circle, and I can go straight up here to Extrude Boss Base. Again, if I mouse over it, it will tell me a little bit about the command, and there is a drop down which I won't be using just yet. So I'm just going to use extrude. I want my entire piece, including that radius tip, to be 50 millimeters, which means that if this is 25 millimeters in diameter and that tip is totally round, this part needs to be 37.5 millimeters. So I'm going to type that in right now, and I'm going to click OK. So now we have an extrusion, and we want to add a revolve to this. So I'm going to come up here to Sketch again. In this case, I need to draw a revolve basically on this end right here. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to click my, my design tree. And again, it lets me choose between the various planes of the piece. So the front plane is useless in this case. That's the one that I did my extrusion from. I'm going to choose the top plane. It's going to make the drawing normal to that plane. And I'm just going to reposition using my scroll wheel. And in this case, I'm going to use a circle. I'm going to start it at the origin point. I'm just going to come out to the point where it snaps on the diameter. So that's actually going to set my diameter there. If I hit escape, that's black, it's fully defined. That's not what I need in this particular case though. I'm going to choose my line tool, and I'm going to click there at the quadrant, come to the origin point, and then come up 90 degrees to this other quadrant. I need to do this because I'm going to do this part as a revolve. I'm going to hit escape there. The revolve is going to be off of this line right here, and all this other geometry of the circle cannot be there for this particular operation. So I'm going to choose trim right here in the middle. I still have it set to power trim, but you could change it to any of the other options. Trim to closest would work pretty well, and I could click this circle and it will get rid of everything except for that quadrant that I want. I could also do that with power trim just by dragging across the edge of the circle. Now I'm going to come over here to extrude boss base. This is where I'm going to use my drop down, and I'm going to choose revolve instead. Again, it's asking for a 360 degree. You could easily put 180 instead, and it's asking for an axis of revolution. And I'm going to choose that center line. It gives me a little preview of what it's going to look like. I'm going to click my check mark, and now I should have my full piece here that looks like vaguely bullet shaped, which is appropriate since I'm an American. Anyway, the next bit is going to be another sketch, and we're going to do this as a revolved cut. This is hollowing out the center piece of this piece. So it's going to have this little recess as well as the rest of the hole. I actually did this as an extruded cut and then a revolved, but you can just do it as one operation, and that's what I'm going to do here. So again, I've clicked sketch. I'm going to come to my feature manager design tree. I'm going to choose the top plane, and then I'm going to choose lines. This will let me snap to the midpoint of this line. I'll come up to a point maybe somewhere in that range. This is going to be a drilled hole, so I'm going to add an angled tip. And I'm going to come way out here, and there is this little recess that I'm going to add as well. And you don't have to be 100% accurate with your line placements here. You just have to be somewhere in the neighborhood, because you're going to define everything with Smart Dimension. So I've clicked Smart Dimension. I'll start on one end here. I know that I want that to be 22 millimeters on the outer diameter of the recess. So I'm going to plug in 11. I know that I want this to be 20 millimeters, so I'm going to put in 10. From here to the end of the recess, I want to be 2 millimeters. And then the last thing that is undefined is this, which I should be able to define just by putting in that angle. And if it's a 118 degree drill, then that should be a 59 degree angle. Oh, I guess it's not completely defined because I need to get this. The important thing here is the drill depth. So I went from this line to that point right there, and I need that to be 40 millimeters. All right. Now I can come up to where it says extruded cut. I can use my drop down, choose a revolved cut, and I'm going to choose that as my axis of rotation. It just defaults to 360 degrees, which is what I need here anyway. So now I've got a hole with that recess and the drilled holes right down there. The last bits were the side holes, and I'll show you how we're going to do that. We need to do it as two different cuts, and we're going to do it very similarly to our revolved cut, except this time it's going to be an extrude. So I've clicked sketch again, go back to my design tree, and I'm going to choose my top plane in this case. I'm going to do a circle. I'm going to put it somewhere in this range. And once I've drawn it, this circle is drawn in the plane of that, it's drawn on the top plane. So first of all, let me use my orientation view to get normal to that view again. And then I'm going to go to Smart Dimension, and I'm going to fully define this. So I want that to be a 10 millimeter diameter circle. And from the edge here to that circle, it's at 12.5 because I had snapped to the origin point, but you still have to fully define that. Now here is a fun little trick. I want this circle to be in the middle of this section right here, not the middle of the entire piece. So I'm going to click right there, and let's say I know that piece is that section is 37.5 millimeters, but let's say I just didn't know what 37.5 millimeters divided by 2 was off the top of my head. Now I could, of course, open up my calculator on my computer, or when I'm typing in the dimension, I can type in 37.5 divided by 2, and it puts it right there in the middle. That's particularly handy for stuff like this. You're putting things in the middle of a feature all the time, so if you know the dimensions of the feature, you can use that trick and you don't have to open up anything else. Now this is going to be an extruded cut, and in this particular case, well, it kind of spoiled things because it defaulted to what I had my last settings at. You have options with this drop down. You can choose blind, which only goes in one direction, and lets you specify a depth. You can choose through all. Again, it only goes in one direction. You could choose through all both, which would definitely do the job here. It would make a cut all the way through all of the geometry in both directions from the plane. What I had it set at was mid-plane, and this would be really handy if you were making a feature that had to go out in both directions a certain amount. Now in this particular case, you just need to specify a dimension that's larger than the diameter here. The diameter is 25 millimeters, so if I had put in 30, you can see your preview cuts through the entire thing. And that is 30 millimeters from this end of your cut to that end. That is one way of doing this. Of course, like I said, you could just say through all both, and it'll do the job in this particular case. So that's one of our holes. Let me do the last one. I'm going to go back to my design tree, and this time we did our first hole off of the top plane. Now I'm going to do it off of the right plane. It's going to become normal to that view, and I'll do the exact same thing. Now I'll draw my circle, I'll hit Smart Dimension, I'll put in the diameter of my circle, 10 millimeters. It's going to be exactly the same. I can come over here and do from the end. I could do my 37.5 divided by 2, or if I remember that it was 18.75 from the first hole, I could just plug that in directly. And then I can go from the edge of my part to there and just hit enter for 12.5 millimeters. Go to extrude cut. It should default to through all both, just like it did before. And there we go. We've got our piece. If we change our view right here, we can go to wireframe with hidden lines. And you can see the cross section of our part. And you might, spoiler alert, see this again, because the next video I'm going to draw something else, and then I'm going to show you how to make an assembly. Anyway, if you have any questions about this or any other Solidworks or machining topics, leave those down in the comments below. I'll be happy to put it into another video. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.